evening and welcome to the Velocity of Now with me, your host Thomas Sheridan. I bet you didn't expect one to happen this soon, but here we are. By the way, do you notice that I put the original bobbing heads at the front? Yeah, I missed it too. I hope you're all keeping very, very well. It is June 18th. Sorry, June 18th. Excuse me, 2018. And tonight's VON is kind of like a response to something I saw today. And I have to say it has really, really excited me. But not for what it represents in itself. First of all, let me explain. You all know my feelings of why I wanted Trump to win, because I saw it as a litmus test and also a disruptor a litmus test of the mainstream and also a disruptor of the social paradigm. I wanted lords of chaos, I wanted gods of chaos to arise from the abyss in order to shake things up. Now I'm not even interested in this on a political level. I don't care about politics. My interest is purely in terms of the lab rats, the normies, the member societies, because I watch these fuckers like a hawk, because I don't trust most of them, and how they behave is a machine or a mechanism or a methodology by which I can actually learn how to live my own life. So therefore, like if I lived in a country where it would look like they were moving towards gulags or extreme fascism or extreme left wing, same thing, their reaction to it is how I would behave, how I would actually modify my own life. Like in that case, get the fuck out of there. So to me, it's purely about a disruption of forces and a generation of energy. That's all it is. I don't care. Nothing else. Of course, I didn't want Clinton to win. She would have started World War III, and you would have had a post-nuclear wasteland with gender-neutral toilets. She was extremely dangerous. And also Trump is funny. He makes me laugh. The man is absolutely a magician. All you have to do is look at how he uses Twitter as a magic wand. He deliberately does it to make his adversaries, his enemies, lefties and liberals, mentally ill. They become psychotic. This is obsession. You see, one of the reasons I now know that I'm a star and I'm famous and I have charisma is obsession. The mentally ill become obsessed with you. They think about you day and night. They cannot get you out of their system because they've been hexed by your success. They've been hexed by your popularity, and they've been hexed by the quality of your work. So they're obsessed. Now, when someone's obsessed, they cannot stop thinking about their so-called enemy or adversary. It never, ever ends. Ever. When they wake up in the morning, they could have their families around them. They could have their loved ones next to them. They could have the flowers blooming in the tree in their garden, fruit on the trees, a beautiful day, birds singing. But because they are obsessed, the first thing they think of is the magician who has obsessed them. And then they spend the rest of their day or the rest of their time wanting to get back at them. This is if you're like this right now, listening to me saying this about anybody, you're obsessed, and it's not you that has the power. It's the person you're obsessed over that has the power. And so therefore Trump has the power. They think about him day and night. Now they claim to hate him, but they live on Twitter and they wait and they wait and they wait for him to say something that will offend them. It's pure hexing, pure obsession, pure magical craft. And he absolutely loves it. And when he trolls the shit out of him, it's a beautiful thing to watch, their reaction. They cannot contain themselves. They're completely and utterly unhinged and psychotic, just like all obsessed people are. Now, as I said, I was delighted when Trump won because we had a spanner in the works, and I was delighted when Brexit happened because we had a spanner in the works. The spanner in the works destroys dogma, The spanner in the works disrupts complacency. The spanner in the work creates new energies for people like me to tap into and ride for my own personal gain. See, I don't care about the world. I remember, like, I've often had, like, assholes over the years say to me, usually, knuckle scraping truthers, they say, well, it's all very well you talking about this and the other. What are you going to do about it? And my attitude was, I'm not going to do fucking shit about it. I couldn't give a fuck. I'm not here to save the world for you, you lazy cunt. I'm here to take care of myself and my loved ones. I couldn't give a shit about you. Save your own ass. You mean nothing to me. You're a complete stranger. I'm not going to do anything to change society. I don't want that. I don't want the badge. I'm not one of these professional, Christ-like saviors that so many of you crave. From Russell Brand to, whatever skunk-ravaged low-life dirtbags are in the truth movement panhandling off you. I don't care about them. I just don't give a shit. I've only got myself. It's hard enough taking care and protecting myself and my loved ones. Why should I give a fuck about you? Who the fuck are you to actually think that I should even give a shit about you? You're not paying me. I don't have a job. I didn't run for election. You're unbelievable. So you all carry this saviour psychosis deep inside you. Jeremy Corbyn being the latest one. You have this need, this desire. Russell Brand, Jeremy Corbyn, what was it? The Occupy movement, the Zeitgeist movement, Anonymous, and like performing seals, you jump from one to the next. And you have no sense of reference that the other 5 or 6 had let you down, and this one will almost certainly let you down as well, but you still jump in there straight away. Why do you jump in straight away? Because you're a moron. Yes, you listening to this right now who jump from one of those things to the next, if you're still doing it, you are a moron, and you deserve everything you get in terms of disappointment, in terms of feeling despondency, and a sense of defeat when it doesn't come to pass. So that's how it is. Trump, the people who even voted for Trump didn't even see him as a hero or a saviour. I bet an awful lot of people voted for Trump for a laugh. I probably would too. And I can hear all the lefties all screaming, real fascism! He's actually worse than Hitler! Oh my God! He's worse than Hitler! I know, isn't it terrible? Like, all those things came to pass. Isn't it terrible how all the gay people were actually rounded up and had electrodes put on their testicles by Pence, the vice president, to cure them of homosexuality? Isn't that terrible that happened? Isn't it terrible that Mexicans were deported, every last one of them, and minorities were reduced to slaves put in concentration camps, as all these respectable liberal journalists went on about and still go on about? Or is it a case that they're mentally ill? And they are mentally ill. They've been made mad. They have been made mad not by Trump. They have been made mad because, well, let's talk. A lot of the attraction towards Hillary Clinton is a sadomasochistic thing. A lot of weak men require women to beat them. That's why you have these female cult leaders who are surrounded by weak men. My queen, I am serving you, my queen. It's a sadomasochistic sexual thing to need that, to require that. And these men are always failures. That's why the cult provides them with their clothes on their back, the roof over their head, the women they're fucking, and the sex prize handed to them by the female cult leader. You'll see that in all these flying saucer and doomsday cults run by females. And the Democratic Party with Hillary Clinton is the same way. They wanted World War III to start under her because they wanted to be whipped by their madam. It was a psychosexual fetish to vote for Hillary Clinton by these weak men. And that's why you have all these soy boys and cookholes and all these SJW type weaklings with their mouths wide up. They wanted to be destroyed in World War III by Hillary Clinton. And look how they're behaving after Trump dealt with North Korea and made peace on that peninsula after 60 odd 70 years. They're disgusted by it. They wanted to be punished by their madam. Madam Hill. And you see, this is the idea, and I noticed this years ago, when Bill Clinton manipulated and raped Monica Lewinsky inside the Oval Office, when he placed, now let's listen to this, all you type that, I still see them saying, Bill Clinton, class act, all these like Trump haters, when he inserted his cigar into her vagina in the Oval Office, removed the cigar from Monica Lewinsky's vagina, no Me Too for her, put it in his mouth and said, tastes pretty good, before ejaculating all over her inside the White House. And you have problems with Trump, you're mentally ill. You need to be in a straitjacket. Forget the Pence giving the electroshock to the testicles of the gays. You need electric shock. You are broken. You are dysfunctional. You still think that vile rapist and worst, Bill Clinton, is better than Trump? What has Trump done to you? Well, here's what me tell you what Trump's done to you. He's exposed that you're a weak man. That's why all these soy boys and all these cuckholes all hate him, because he's a successful man. You are a weak man. Weakness, weakness, weakness. And you just know it tortures you. And he's shagging women that you could only dream about. He's got all the money in the world. Now, am I supporting him because of that? Good luck, Trump. I would like to have all the money in the world. Anyone I know who's successful, I love it. Good luck to them. Does that make him a better person than me? No, I don't know if Trump is a better man than me or anything like that, or most people. I acknowledge his success in life and I respect him. That's okay. Because I'm not a weak failure of a man. Therefore, I am not threatened by powerful men. I look to powerful men and I say, yeah, fair enough. That's okay. We'll talk a little bit more about altruism later on, but this could be quite a long show tonight. Hopefully, I know you all like that. Now, Trump's a disruptor. Trump is a disruptive force. He destroys the status quo. Now, the status quo, anyone who's probably listened to this show or anyone who has a brain, knows that the so-called the ones that think they're radicals, like the ones who go to universities and listen to college professors, well, they're not radicals at all. They're actually the mainstream. They think John Oliver is radical. These people are so lame. They're so unbelievably mainstream. The mainstream today is left wing, ultra liberal. That's it. So to be that and calling yourself a radical, whether in an American college campus calling yourself a communist, or in some ridiculous operation like the Socialist Workers' Party, which is made up of toffs anyway. Let's talk about the Socialist Workers' Party. The Socialist Workers' Party for the last 50 years has been outside at every demonstration you could possibly imagine, and like embedded lice deep inside every college and university, claiming that they're going to overthrow the state and implement a socialist system worldwide or in each country. Not only have they failed miserably, but people need to be very, very suspicious of these cunts, because what they do is the first thing they do is they take your name. They're a classic Bolshevik operation. They absolutely love taking down names, addresses, and information. This is the gulag mentality of these lefties. You see this gulag mentality of the lefties everywhere. For instance, a left-winger, the first thing that they think of another person who has a contrary political opinion is that person is a lunatic. Just like in 1984, where O'Brien says to, Winston Smith, you were a lunatic. He was a lunatic for having a different political opinion than these extreme leftists. So the books of Alexander Solzhenitsyn, anyone who disagreed with the Bolsheviks in Russia ended up in cancer hospitals, having been tested with drugs, because once you made them a lunatic, declared them a lunatic, their humanity was no longer there to protect them, and you didn't have to, as you as a Bolshevik, didn't have to defend their humanity. So therefore, you could do medical experiments on them and things like that. During the Stalin years, when perestroika happens and they open glasnost and they open up all the files on the Stalin years, the people who they said the vast KGB and NKTV files of the previous before that of people who were liquidated under the purges. Often their photographs before they were slaughtered had been scratched with nails and staples and fingernails and these kinds of pens by the ordinary bureaucrats, the Bolshevik bureaucrats in the Politburos, who were filled with overwhelming hatred of people they never met. But they were enemies of the revolution, and they were so psychotic they would attack their photographs. Look it up, that actually happened. This is how psychotic the left wing is. This is why we can never ever trust them. Now, I'm not talking about your run-of-the-mill average harmless lefty from years ago who wants healthcare and all this kind. I'm talking about the left wing as a political force. It is a cancer, and it's always at the state of developing metastasis. So it'll always metastasize towards Bolshevism or its sister, National Socialism, like you had under Hitler in Germany. Same thing. Now, so anyway, this SWP it's basically, it works like a religious cult in that they have to constantly read and recite and discuss Trotsky and Trotskyite philosophy. Now, we were all raised, I know I was in your country, that Trotsky was the good communist, that Stalin and Lenin, they were all evil, and Trotsky was the good one, and that's why he had to leave. That is the biggest load of bullshit you will ever hear in your life. Trotsky was a mass murdering psychotic, a mass murderer of groups in southern Russia, particularly the Tatars, who he knew would never convert over to Bolshevism. He sent out orders saying kill everybody, send messages out. It was the same tactic used at the Chinese Cultural Revolution. You put a bullet in one person's head and you let the other person live, so a bullet of fear remains in their skull. So you kill half the people and the rest have a bullet of fear in them. And he operated on that system. In fact, the Chinese Communist Revolution, Cultural Revolution, got that idea from Trotsky. But Trotsky's the good guy. Oh, he was the nice guy. He was scum. He was as bad as Stalin. The only thing is he never got the chance to be as bad as Stalin because he had to make a run for it. Otherwise, he was just as rotten to the core as any of them, and just as sick and just as demented. Now, why do people of a certain age turn towards socialism and communism? Well, socialism on the surface tries to present itself as this altruistic model for the healing of society, and people who don't fully examine it have this idea that socialism is about the good of the society. Yes, it is, but not for the benefit of the society. The main reason and the purpose of socialism and communism, they're the same thing ultimately at the end of the day, is to provide the population, the proletariat, with a specific level of lifestyle so they do not kill the ruling classes. This was the lesson learned during the French Revolution, when the aristocrats were all slaughtered. Well, not a lot, well, some of them, not all of them. Most of the people that died in the French Revolution were Catholics who refused to become Republicans and cast off and become atheists. They were killed for reason, for the goddess of reason that was installed in Notre Dame Cathedral. Now, the mental illness seeps in when this Christ-like savior culture. So, you're a stupid person at college, and someone brainwashes you that the world is a sick place. You see all the wars on TV. The answer to this is socialism, and you grasp it. But what happens is then you become fanatical about it. And like a religious fanatic, you see anyone against your belief in socialism as the greatest enemy that ever lived. And they must be destroyed because you're on the side of righteousness. It's really interesting. It's a really interesting thing how socialism uses the same model as religions such as Islam. This is why they love it. Remember, National Socialism is the same as Bolshevik socialism. There's no difference there. And This then becomes like a religious person in a cult. They're brainwashed. Now, I saw a fantastic example of this idea today. There was a Katie Hopkins interview where she was talking to some wagon bureaucrat, whatever, journalist, and she was saying, why do Muslims always go to non-Muslim countries and then try to change them? And the other person just kept, because we're bombing them, we're bombing them. And she goes, well, if we're bombing them, why don't they go to Saudi Arabia or the Gulf states who can take them in and afford it? And she says with a hint of irony, Saudi Arabia has a right to protect its borders, but European nations don't. Now, that was insane enough as it was. And so Katie Hopkins makes perfectly rational points, as she often does, and the media despise her because she makes rational points. This is the left mental illness again. So there's a comment on the left on that video, and the comment was by, this lunatic shouldn't get on the air because she starts to look after she's making sense after a while. Now just think about that. He called her a lunatic and didn't want her on the air because she was making sense. And I went to his page, and sure enough, he's a hardcore Trotskyite socialist. So the socialist psychology is, even if it makes sense, even if it's done for the better, if it's not from a socialist viewpoint, it's lunacy. It has to be taken out. So therefore, the idea that nothing good can emanate from anything other than socialism and these pinko commies, that they are the arbiters of all goodness, that they are the font of all compassion. And if anybody else comes up with a good idea who's not a lefty, well, they have to be destroyed. Which brings me to an interesting development today. I noticed that Paul Joseph Watson mentioned something about a kind of a soft coup, and other, what they call the alt-right people, are joining in. Basically what they're planning to do, and the more I'm thinking about this, the more I think this is brilliant, is that they're going to use all their audience in the UK, all these people who are in the UK, to vote for the UKIP party, the UK Independence Party. I think this is a brilliant idea. Not necessarily because I want UKIP to be the leaders of British politics or something like that, but we're going to get what we finally need, and this is what's going to terrify the mainstream. Quantification of just how big the left actually is, in particular socialists. Because if you look at the cultural Marxists, the Frankfurt School, and the New School in New York, and all these other, as the Fabian Society in England, and all these other Marxist machines, social engineering machines, they are merely a mirage that's giving the opportunity that the left is enormous. I personally believe that there is almost no left. I even believe in colleges and universities where you have these SJWs, that these are a handful of psychotics, unhinged, mentally ill people. And I'm not saying this because they're left wing. I'm not using the left wing tactic of calling. I'm not from the right wing. Remember, I probably consider myself a anarcho-capitalist, if anything. And many of the things that left wingers or socialists stand for, I believe in. I believe in state healthcare, but I also believe that people should be able to get private healthcare as well. I believe in gay, and I voted here. I voted in Ireland to legalise gay marriage, and I voted in Ireland to legalise abortion. So these are things that the left are intrinsically connected to, and I believe in them. I'm on that side. I'm not coming from the right-wing side. I despise Christianity, and that's probably one of the reasons I would probably never, ever go right-wing, is because it's saturated with that biblical New Testament garbage. So coming from a neutral, sort of soft anarchist point of view, I don't believe the left actually exists any more than two things. Small numbers of highly vocal, unhinged people, and immature people, I should say as well, immature and childlike people in society, coupled with complete control of the mainstream media. Other than that, there are no socialists. They just don't exist. They just don't exist. They don't. And even the ones that call themselves socialists, a lot of them work in jobs where they're raking in money from capitalism. They just think they're socialists. And if you look at the so-called socialist parties, the mainstream ones like Labour in the UK or Labour in Ireland or Labour in Canada, they're not at all. Even Labour in Israel, they're not at all socialist. Not at all. Not at all. So who are the lefties? The lefties are nobody. The lefties are the emperor's new clothes. They don't exist. And they're also fed by the right-wingers. See, the right-wingers, on one hand, the alt-right, do a great job exposing all these insane Marxist professors or these enormously stupid radical groups or all these maniac feminists who kooky feminists, as a friend of mine loves that term, kook, and these women, these so-called feminists, they do things like they cover themselves in menstrual blood, and they shit and piss on this, they free pee and free bleed. And that's why they love all these third world immigrants, because a lot of these third world immigrants come here and they shit on the streets. So that's why these feminists appeal to them. They're seeing themselves reflected in it. They want a society where they can piss on the streets and shit. This kind of thing. And the same thing is happening with they're not, when the alt-right gives these crazies a mouthpiece, they're also making them look bigger than they are. So the alt-right people have kind of built these up to show them what they are, but on one hand, it makes it seem like there's more than there actually is. Now, these left-wing radical student types, they use bully boy tactics. They bully people. But ultimately, it's not working. Like, I saw a thing where Jordan Peterson was, and Jordan Peterson, I like nearly everything the guy says except for the Jesus stuff. I'm gone then. But anyway, he was doing a talk somewhere, and of course you get this, like, it's somewhere in America or Canada, and you get the usual wankers who go up there who don't even know what they're protesting, shouting. And he was shouted down by the crowd. This is what they do, and they run in terror when they're stood up to, because they're cowards. My very first speaking date in England was with John Perkins, the guy who wrote Confessions of an Economic Hitman, that was set up at the Middleton Arena in Manchester in 2012. It was the first big gig I did in England. Inside the arena, talking to a large audience, it's like an arena, not a huge arena, but it's an arena, and it was packed. And just as I was talking, I'd mentioned during my talk we have to be careful of groups such as Occupy. We don't know who they really are. And then some twat at the front starts picking on me. And I told him, look, we can talk about this when it's over, but the audience basically said, out, 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 and he stormed out of the hall. This is how they think. Now, that guy was probably a nice guy. He may not have been a bastard. But he was, just like we have the mind virus of Christianity, and the Abrahamic religions, in particular Islam, you have the mind virus of the left, and Bolshevism, and these ideas. Because it works on the same religious principles. That they believe that they have actually come to create the perfect world, and you're taking it from them, and therefore you're evil. And that's how they think. And that's why the first word out of their mouth is they call you a lunatic, or a racist, or a feminist, or as a misogynist. They love, it's the same thing as going, sinner, repent! It's coming from the same psychosis. So this is why I really like this idea of this soft coup, and all the people who follow the alt-right in England voting for UKIP. Because finally, we will be all as a society will be able to gauge just how big not only the left is, but just how big the mainstream is. I mean, I even see it on my own stuff. I mean, Ireland's national television station, RTE, can put a video out there, and within a first hour I'll have twice as many hits. Who are these people? Who do they represent? If they didn't have the TV forced on you, when it's given a choice with society that can have other options, they fall apart. And this is what they're going to find out. The left wing are going to find this out very badly. I expect, first of all, I totally support this idea. So if you're one of my followers in England, I'm not telling you to vote how to vote. That's none of my business. But what I would say, it might be worth your while taking this idea and voting in the next general election for UKIP. That's all I'm saying. If you want to do it, I wouldn't be against the idea. Because again, we'll get a litmus test. we'll get a litmus test of what we're dealing with. Now, at the weekend, there was some kind of weird cult festival for Jeremy Corbyn of the Labour Party in England. The show produced, well, first of all, the bands they had were crap. The Magic Numbers, for Christ's sake, they're an awful band. The Magic Numbers are the English version of the Boomtown Rats. No sane person would listen to them. So that the bands were bad. The bands were awful to begin with, which shows me that the really good bands didn't want to get involved. It's almost become a poison chalice now to get heavily involved in politics if you're in a band, because they've all made the fatal mistake of backing the mainstream, i.e., say Hillary Clinton. Yeah, the night before, the mentally ill people of the New York Times said that she would get 90% of the vote and Donald Trump would get 10% of the vote. And we all know what happened the next day. But they're mentally ill at the New York Times. They didn't care about facts. They didn't care about anything. They, in their minds, reality had been set in stone. And because they only know people like themselves, other elitists, they don't know ordinary people like me and you. They don't know us. So they assume that their social circle on the upper west side of Manhattan, or the upper east side, or around Gramercy Park, or in the New York Athletic Club, this is real horrible Trump. They all talk the same over there as they do in the SWP in England. Yeah, remember that weirdo George Clooney? Trump will not be elected. I always remember, what's her name? Ann Poulter, is that her name? Coulter. And she said, they said, some show with, I think, Bill Maher, and he goes, who will be the next president of the United States, or has the best chance of winning? And she says, Donald Trump. And they all laugh at her. But they laugh at her in such like, you're stupid, you're insane. No, they were stupid. And Bill Maher shown himself this week that he wants the United States to die, and millions of working class people to lose their jobs. To lose their fucking jobs. Their families starving, just so Bill Maher, let me tell you something, Bill Maher, right? If there's one person in the media I absolutely fucking despise, it's you. It's you. Someone should sodomize you, Bill Maher, with a multicolored umbrella, and after you've been well rogered, then open the fucking umbrella. You are human waste. You are a despicable elitist. You are vile. You and your lefty liberal wankbags actually want the United States to collapse. So millions of families are put on the poverty line, made homeless because they can't pay their mortgages or rent, die of diseases because they can't afford their medical bills. Because you and your fucking elitist rats, vermin in the media and in the upper echelons of American establishment can get rid of Trump. Do you know how psychopathic that sounds? I'm not saying you're a psychopath. I don't know you that well. But I will say this. You are excrement. You are evil. And the fact that you made that comment is proof alone why people voted for Trump. Because they were sick and tired of repugnant maggots like you. You're vile. You're absolutely vile. You have no decency in you. None at all. Like these animals in the left in England who said that the older generation, the ones who had actually defeated the Third Reich, shouldn't be allowed to vote because they're all Nazis. They're all Nazis. This is the left. This is the left that killed so many people in the metro in Budapest that you could not walk along the ground because there was a layer of human blood and brains from hundreds being shot in the head, stuck to the floor in a viscous pool. Enemies of the revolution. This is the left that took people during the Chinese Cultural Revolution out into a field, shot half of them and left a bullet of fear in the brains of the others. This is the left that sent people to cancer wards to test drugs on them because they didn't like communism. This is you, Bill Maher. Bill Maher, you showed what you really are with that comment. Of course, he exists for a purpose. On a magical aspect, we need him. We need maniacs and monsters like him in order to show what crazed lunatics these mainstream liberals actually are. They still love the Kennedys. Kennedys are still wonderful. Yet they forget that the Kennedys started the Vietnam War. That Bobby Kennedy was put in as Attorney General by his own brother, and they will use words like Camelot. No, Americans didn't vote for a dynasty or a royal family, and that's what the Kennedys gave them. Now, did they deserve to die? No. Were they wonderful people? Absolutely not. Joe Kennedy was a nasty piece of work. These guys were Irish-American mafia. Of course, like the Irish Catholics in America probably had to be like the Italians. They had to go into organised crime to get ahead. But this whole thing like, oh, we missed them so badly. Look at the personal behaviour of the Kennedys. And anyway, this back to the Bill Clinton again. We can do no wrong. We're liberals. We're the good guys. We're Democrats. We're the good guys. When we're, Obama droning the shit out of the Middle East. But he's a Democrat. He's a good guy. While Trump gets peace on the Korean Peninsula and they call him a Nazi and a fascist. This is how sick they are. So we have to get... I think the UKIP thing could be the final nail in the coffin of these types. Now you're going to see... If what I think is happening here is going to happen, you're going to see psychotic convulsions in the left wing, particularly newspapers like The Guardian and The Independent. The Tarquins and the Nigels, who are either the Trotskyite theory and their Bolshevik literature, they will become psychotic in their stately homes. They will go insane, and they will make the most ferocious attacks on people. Now, it's you see, this is all happening because of chaos magic. This is what's happening. Nigel Farage's story in some ways is even more amazing than Trump. Here was a guy who seems quite likeable, very funny, great sense of humour. He destroyed the European Union. The European Union has never recovered from Brexit. Never recovered. There's still, it may still exist, but it's like what the European Union, and it's funny. I made a video the other day about fractals and cycles and fractals, and repeating interfaces between modalities of thought. You see, because I use the F word a lot, fuck, and other curse words, lots of people out there think I'm not educated or intelligent. Well, fuck you. Anyway, the modalities of fractal spiraling. So, let me explain it. Let me show you another good one. UKIP came along with Nigel Farage. They crashed him in an airplane. They probably tried to kill him, and he still destroyed them and went for a pint. Now, the European Union is now in the same decline as what happened the Roman Empire after the Iceni Revolt in Britain. When the Iceni Revolt happened in AD 60, 61, the Romans got the shit battered out of them by the British Celtic tribes. And even though they suppressed it, they killed Boudica, and they killed the Druids in Wales, they never ever recovered. And it began the beginning of the end of the Roman Empire. And the same thing happened with Brexit. On the same island, funny enough, by the same tribe, the Britons. The fractals were in spirals, were repeating fractals. Happenstances, synchronicity. Watch and pay attention. They spiral in and they spiral out. You sit in the middle with none attachment. Of course, when you see a piece of shit like Bill Maher say he wants people to be destroyed, working class people to be destroyed, so Trump can get out. Yeah, you take an adversarial approach to his wickedness, to his pathology, and this is also why they hate the likes of Morrissey. Morrissey is like that. Morrissey is almost like the troubadour of these changes. And I saw a ridiculous T-shirt that was being advertised last week. Love the Smiths, hate Morrissey. This is how pathetic they are. This is how Morrissey is not allowed to have his own opinions unless they're the opinions of the liberal left. Otherwise, forget about it. Forget about it. This is how they think. Like I saw, there was some cuckold from some English band, current indie band, who last year wrote an article standing up to Morrissey and was saying things like Morrissey wants an England of salad days and cricket on the lawn and cucumbers. Hold on a fucking second, you stupid twat. Morrissey grew up in Salford in Manchester, of a very poor working class Irish background. He'd have a pot of piss in growing up. That's the England that he remembers. Well, meanwhile, the cuckold from the SJW cuckold from this indie band probably grew up in Cambridgeshire in a family like that with cricket and cucumber sandwiches and bowls on the lawn. You see how sick they are? How demented? They've no sense of irony. But my God, if this thing comes true and your man at Infowars, Mr. Watson and the rest of them do this, well, we could have something really interesting happening here. Look how Brexit tortured and traumatized them. Look how Trump tortured and traumatized them. For this to happen would be the end. If you got a British government that the majority was UKIP and it wiped out both the Tories and Labour, it'd be a whole new world. The political system would. You want to talk about chaos magic? Even the fact that even if they didn't win, the fact that their names are in the basket, in the hat, in such numbers, it really will validate all the freaks like us, all the losers and outsiders like us who turned against the mainstream. Again, you'll have people listening to this saying, they're all the same, they're all the same, all the same. Well, first of all, they're not. They're not. It doesn't work like that. And secondly, it doesn't matter if UKIP got into government and they were all corrupted after that. The fact that they got into government is enough. It's enough. It's like Brexit. It's got to the point now where I think I don't even care if Brexit happens or not, although it should happen. And the fact that they're delaying it is damaging them too. But it's enough. That was enough. That was enough to rattle the shite out of them. The same with Trump. It was enough. Trump will probably win 2020 because they don't have a candidate who can run against him. And secondly, they're just making it worse for themselves. I mean, the likes of Bill Maher thinks he can get rid of Trump for 2020 by making comments like that. He's just giving them millions of more voters. It's the same reason. The establishment elitists like him who think they're all left-wing socialists or whatever they think they are on their millions a year, the greatest terror that they haven't confronted within the labyrinth of their own existence. And this really is something that's never talked about. But the greatest horror that they faced with Trump was that millions upon millions of African Americans and other Americans who voted for Obama switched their vote to Trump. Were they racists? No. They're thinking. I think we've got a better class of voter now than we had, say, 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years ago. Because the average sheeple, the average, I don't even like using the word, the average normie's a better word. The average normie is too obsessed with, to them voting is X Factor, say yes to the dress, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here, American Idol. That to them is voting. So when it comes to political elections, they're not interested because they're getting more excited by the bullshit TV voting. So the ones who do vote are the ones who have a stake in it. And that's what happened with Brexit. Brexit was millions of people who never voted before suddenly saw their opportunity to stick it to the man. And they did it, and they rogered him rightly, and it was beautiful. I'll never forget that morning as long as I live. It was wonderful. The normies are not voting for who the establishment want them to vote for because voting has been made into a celebrity sport, and they're literally like this. Oh, I can't go down and vote in the general election because I already voted for Tamara on X Factor. I want her to win X. I voted for her on X. I want Tamara to win X Factor. I wanted to say yes to the dress. Oh, I want that one. Love, I want this bitch to get the dress. I want... That's what the voting is to them now. I'm not going down. I have already voted this year. Who did you vote for? Oh, yeah. Fontaine on American Idol. He had a lovely voice when he sang that Celine Dion song. I've already voted this. This is what the normies are like. I've already voted. I'm not voting anymore. I'm tired. Where sane people who are not normies, who are paying attention, are noticing that this is happening. And they're running down there and they're voting. Now in Ireland we had the recent abortion vote. I would say that although they showed all the maniacs in Dublin Castle, and they were maniacs, they were all RSJWs, and all their the soy boys were all there. The vast majority of people who voted for that voted to stick it to the Catholic Church. That's what they did that for. No other reason. Because abortion was more or less de facto legal in Ireland anyway. If you wanted an abortion, you were able to have it until it was a high-profile case not too long ago, on medical grounds. And if you wanted one just as a regular abortion, you can go to England on Ryanair, €50, €20 flight, easy. So it wasn't a problem. You could get an abortion if you wanted one. It was really just to stick it to the church. And also, that was really why most people, the average sane person, voted to stick it to the Catholic Church. Especially after Tuam, and people like me had made a big deal about that. They couldn't have that moral high ground after that point anymore. So you have this situation now where not only could you could have a perfect storm of Trumpism, Brexitism, in terms of the alt-right taking control of British politics and using UKIP as a magic wand, destroying the establishment, the media establishment, the political establishment, and the bureaucratic establishment, who especially need to be destroyed. Now, where is this all coming from? It's coming from chaos magic. Chaos magic is growing at the same rate that the establishment are going insane. The more chaos magic is like a farm. When you feed it, the yield increases, like synchronicity. Chaos begats chaos. It breeds like plants or livestock. And once that cycle kicks in, you can't stop it. So we had the thing on 4chan with Kek, Pepe. That emerged out of the ether as the resurrection of an Egyptian god. Kek magic is incredibly... I use Kek magic all the time now. I've developed my own sigil for Kek magic. And I know other people are using it because, why, that force is really powerful right now. Chaos has delivered it onto us. And look at all the people who attack Trump. These ones who are, like I said, obsessed. Their lives all fall apart because they're in violation of natural laws, universal flux, universal energy forces. Again, but I don't like Trump because he's a Republican. But that's not the point, you stupid bastard. You have to like him because he's the power of the age. Kek is the significator of this change. But Kek is a right-wing symbol of Nazis. No, Kek is a potent logos which carries with it a specific charge. And this specific charge is for you to ride. Go with it. Do not run against it. It's there. You cannot go against it. It's like pushing back the wind. You can't do it. What do? You capture the wind like a windmill and you generate energy. That's what you do. That is what you do. But if I vote for Jeremy Corbyn, he's different. He knows about the people. He's a man of the people. Man of the people. It's funny how I do when I ever do and I don't mean this in a bad way, but when I do a kind of, it's probably cultural programming. Like I see the orcs in the Lord of the Rings. Whenever I want to do an idiot English accent, I do a southern kind of Cockney accent. I shouldn't do that. And if I want to offset that, I do a northern accent, like a Geordie accent. Like I'm not fucking voting for that Jeremy Corbyn. I get fucking newt from me. I get fucking gash. That fucking Jeremy Corbyn, he's a fucking twat. How, man? He's a fucking twat. If he fell into a barrel full of tits, he'd come up sucking his thumb. I don't know, I just like the Geordie accent. But I can do the Liverpool accent, right? Alright, mates, I'm going to vote for that Jeremy Corbyn because he's going to get me, he's going to get me an increase in me. Alright, he's going to get me an increase in me gyro, and I'm going to get more money to buy Skagman. I'll stop there. Right, I used to be able to do a Liverpool accent. I'm better at the Geordie one now. But yeah, I do a southern thing. I don't know what, like Nigel Truth or Saint Danny being a foil. Saint Danny being a foil. I don't know why I do that. It's very unfair to people. I apologise. I have been culturally brainwashed. I apologise to all my friends who come from south of Birmingham. Please forgive me. From Birmingham. But yeah. We know when I was a kid in England, I went to visit my cousins in Birmingham, and it was in Sparkbrook, which is now all Pakistanis and Asians. It was mostly Irish then, but it was changing. I think it was the first time I ever smelled curry was there. And, nothing against them. I mean, I do remember the corner shop with the Asian people in them and the smelling of curry. I was when I'm a real little kid. But I was with my cousins on the street, and they were petting a dog with some other local Brummie kids. And I went down to the dog and I went, "How are you, fella? How's it going? How's it going?" And rubbing the dog. And all the Brummie kids all burst out laughing, and they were going, "He talks funny, he talks funny." And I was like, "Sorry, you're going to learn a harsh lesson about this world when you take that accent out of Sparkbrook into the wider world. He talks funny." There's this TV show here in Ireland called Après Match, and it's actually one of the few good things on RTE, and they take the piss out of TV presenters during the soccer, and one of them is Liam Brady, who used to play for Arsenal in Ireland back in the 70s and 80s. Fantastic footballer, but he's one of the hosts of the show, of the soccer show, but they also take the piss out of him on this Après Match thing. And he really does talk and goes, you might say something like, say that the recent match, Ronaldo playing against Spain, and he goes, and the host of the show's name was Bill, he's dead now, but he'd go, "Well, Bill, I was looking at Ronaldo taking the penalty, and he kicked it into the goal." And that's how Liam Brady talks. I don't know why I went on a tangent with that. I don't know how I went on a tangent. But you can learn a lot about people how they talk. But also, the accent thing comes from the class. Because I remember years ago seeing a thing about there was a book of correct pronunciations of Shakespearean plays. And all the toffs in, Richard III and all them, they all sounded like Cockneys. So, John Dee and Queen Elizabeth all sounded like Cockneys. "All right, mate, hasn't been the same since Ron and Reggie were around here." I can't do a good Cockney accent. Yeah, anyway, where was I? Does it matter? I don't know. But anyway, yeah, well, so here we are, dealing with this idea of an overtaking of the mainstream, and it's a good one. It's an important one, and it's chaos. Chaos is liberation. The only people who fear chaos are people who are completely wired into dogma and orthodoxy. They're terrified of chaos. They do not want anything changing, and they will go to unbelievable lengths, including mass murder, to hold on to dogma and orthodoxy. So Paul Joseph Watson and the rest of the people in the British alt-right who are planning this idea, they're going to find it very difficult. They're going to be up against it. They're going to be up against it. Now, they're going to be seriously attacked because a commie backed into a corner is a killer. A commie backed into a corner is a killer. And they will do it just like a religious fanatic. This is why they love ISIS and Sharia law. The same pathological forces that drive an ISIS suicide bomber or a truck driver to mow down kids in the street is the same imperative and the same psychological mechanism used by posh lefties in the SWP to maintain the status quo. The same thing. You're dealing with extreme fanatics. So this is why I kind of do want to support them, because they are doing a very brave thing. And I don't even watch InfoWars, or I have no interest really in the alt-right. I find a lot of it incredibly boring. And other than Milo, I quite like him. He's funny. But and I don't really care that much about SJWs. I find them more entertaining than anything else because of the state of them and what they get up to. Attacking statues. But they're also... It's all controlled by the state. You remember when they were attacking statues in America? Suddenly statues of Civil War soldiers were suddenly the worst thing in the world. And then just like that, they stopped. Now that shows you that it was all being planned from the top. And there's one particular statue that was pulled over, just a regular Confederate infantryman, and all soldiers should be respected. They're not, and this is what was sick about it, quite sick. And the statue is pushed over, and a black kid with a guitar jumps in front of it. It looked so scripted. That was the cultural Marxists and the communists deliberately. You see, they all claim that they're not racist, but they knew a black male dancing on a Confederate statue would create the most visceral reaction. So they just used that black kid. These liberal Democrats, cultural Marxist, socialist professors used that black kid, just like all the SJWs use black people, because they see them as their slaves. This is why they're always going on about white guilt. This is why they're always going on about what's best for black people. Because all these liberals, they see black people as their slaves. They're political and social and cultural slaves. The plantation is not the cotton field anymore. The plantation is their political objectives. And black people are still picking their cotton in their fields for political objectives, in the political fields. They don't care about, they never have. It's like that old joke, the Democrats haven't been this angry at the Republicans since the Republicans freed their slaves. And that's true. The Democratic Party, I mean, that's why you have people like K.N. West and Dennis, what's his name, Rodham. They're all waking up now. Black people are waking up rapidly in America and seeing the Democratic Party for what it is. They're seeing it for what it is. You know, when I lived in America, it was just a given that black people voted Democrat. That's changing rapidly. Those days are over. And funny enough, what made it over was a black president. Not because it's a revulsion against Obama. It's like, we got a black president, it's been done, it's been sorted with. Now we can vote how we really feel. It's almost like that. And guess what? Working class, many working class black people in America, they voted for who? For Trump. That's the great family secret within the liberals that they can't handle. They never talk about it. They keep it quiet. The only time I ever heard about it was watching a very funny video about the Young Turks on the night of the election. And one of those pieces of shit turns around and says, we have to accept that large number of Obama voters voted for Trump. That was just code for black people. The slaves had escaped from the liberal plantation. The liberal political plantation. Now, isn't that an interesting irony? Chaos. Chaos breeds freedom. Chaos breeds potentials. Chaos breeds opportunities and creativity. It doesn't matter what the direction the chaos comes from. For example, we could have been living under an extreme right-wing oligarchy for the last 30 or 40 years, where all the media was controlled by the right wing, all the mainstream punditry on TV, all the subtext and all the sitcoms and all the movies was all right wing, and then you would embrace a left wing takeover because that chaos would be required to unhinge that one. Right now, the imperative is to get the left liberals destroyed, not for any philosophical reason, but because firstly they showed how insane they were supporting Hillary Clinton, and secondly they've no plan B. They've no plan B anywhere. They have no only stalling tactics, besmirching and smear campaigns and slurs. They have no plan B. A socialist does not have a reverse gear. Not in any way do they have a reverse gear until something happens in their lives on a personal level that makes it realize that it's bullshit. You know, it's like they always said in America, the difference between a liberal and a conservative is a one being mugged just once. A lot of truth to that. And that mugging was chaos. That was the chaotic imperative to shake that person out of their malaise. You must embrace chaos. You must love chaos. You must cherish chaos. Because chaos is the attenuator of your potential as a human being. To stand in violation of it, as a resistive force to it, it will destroy you. To ride with it is pure liberation, pure salvation. So I do hope people, and this is sincere, consider what's happening with the alt-right and UKIP, and perhaps, not telling you how to vote, perhaps as a litmus test of how powerful or not the establishment is, well, maybe join in. Something quite sad, to change the subject, happened this week with Anthony Bourdain, the writer, broadcaster, the guy who exposed what bullshit the food industry is, the restaurateuring industry and hospitality at the high-end industry is, tragically committed suicide. For whatever reason, we'll probably never know what goes to. We know the man had struggled with addictions, but that doesn't usually lead to suicide. But it's quite upsetting to see people saying that the Illuminati killed him and all this stuff. You know, this nonsense. I'm not down with that. I just don't buy that. He was, first of all, he wasn't any great adversary of the system at all. He was doing well from the system and he played the game. But I have to say, I did love his TV shows, and I did love this. The book Kitchen Confidential was brilliant when it came out. How it exposed the kind of muck that goes on in these restaurants, and you know, and the way his love of food was not about 5-star Michelin restaurants. It could be that, but often it was about carts from the street or fast. Like when he went to Dublin, he actually went to a Chipper, a fast food place that I used to go to when I was in college, and he tried smoked cod. You know, it was like this. This is what I loved about his TV shows. So that was like really sad to see. I mean, the guy has always struck me as being very sincere and likable on TV. Something very real there. He wasn't like the usual dickhead you get on media. He was something very different. And his success and fame wasn't because he had the right family connections. It was because he was good at what he did. He was good at what he did, and he came up with an original idea. And we saw the man, flaws and all. And there's something very appealing about that. So I was very sad to see that. I mean, I really liked the guy. I still think he had decades of good writing and good books left in him, and it was all there. But you know, it's we see so much of this. I remember when Michael Hutchins of In Excess, when he committed suicide and was found dead. I remember that really annoying and upset me too. And it wasn't that I was a massive In Excess fan, but the guy had a great voice. He looked amazing, and that band did write some great songs. And I'd seen a concert they did on MTV not long before he died, and they were on fire. They were kind of going the way of Depeche Mode. They were getting a kind of a darker, harder edge to them. It would have been something to see how that band developed if they had have went the way of Depeche Mode and got to be a bit more intense and a bit more using their success to move in that direction. But of course, he was found hanging from a doorknob or wardrobe, or whatever. And that story, and again, it's like, now I should be careful because I live in Ireland and I'm not that distant from Geldof and his networks. But there was I saw a thing on YouTube recently about Geldof, and he is a nasty piece of work. Now, for starters, he comes from a very well-to-do background. He grew up in a Regency-style home on the waterfront in Dunleary in South Dublin. He went to Blackrock College, which is the Eton of Ireland. So all these songs about working in the soap factory and all these awful Boomtown Rat songs, that's not true. Secondly, I don't know. I don't know. It's like I saw there were comments on the video when he's talking about his love for Paula Yates and what happened with Michael Hutchence. Half the comments were like, "Oh, you're a wonderful man, Sir Bob." They always call him Sir Bob when they're praising him. "You're a wonderful man. You're Saint Bob. You know, she was a slag. She was a slut," and all this kind of thing. And the other half were like, "You're a murderer. You were behind both their deaths." It was very interesting to see how many comments were calling him out and claiming that he was responsible for the deaths of Michael Hutchence and Paula Yates. Paula Yates is an interesting character. If there was one person in the media that you could actually say, "Oh, that's like an MK Ultra thing," it was probably her. I mean, she started out on the Tube, fantastic TV show back in Channel 4 in the early 80s with Jules Holland, where you got live bands playing, live in the studio. It was a whole new thing. And I remember the first time I saw Killing Joke was on the Tube, and it was like some great performances at that time. And she was cute, she was fun, she was very vivacious. Turns out, and she didn't know it at the time, or she found out later, that she was the daughter of the biggest British TV star of the 60s and 70s, Hughie Green, the illegitimate daughter. So she was kind of like from the TV family, pushed into that world, and she deserved it because she was good at what she did. And then it's that infamous episode where she met Michael Hutchence and the two of them were flirting. Now, marriages fall apart all the time. People meet other people in their lives, and chemistry sometimes happens unexpectedly between people. Two people can meet, may not have anything in common, or maybe in other relationships, but it happens. It's life. It's unfortunate. These things happen. Now, I always remember when that marriage deteriorated, she was saying things like, "People have no idea what Bob Geldof really is. He's a monster. He's not Saint Bob." So the next thing, he's dead, Michael Hutchence, and there's this weird phone call thing that happens where the last person he literally spoke to on the phone was Geldof. And Geldof, we don't know what Geldof said to him. Yet Michael Hutchence was locked in the hotel drinking and all this kind of things. But it's just so suspicious that that's what happened. And then soon after, she's dead. And then he adopts their child and tries to make a big deal out of it. It's not my baby, but I'm looking after the child. It's almost like those stories in the Bible of you slay the Canaanites, but you keep their children for your own and raise them as Hebrews. That was almost like that. It was almost like those one of those horrible biblical stories from Leviticus or something. I mean, again, this guy has, then this guy's own daughter, dies. Now, I'm not saying he had anything to do with that, but I just don't understand Bob Geldof. And he was also saying things like to her, like, "There's nothing you can do to me. I'm immune." Well, the knighthood does that. We know that with Savile, that the knighthood does give you immunity. The reason why he was never brought to task while he was alive was because he was a knight. He had a knighthood, so he could do whatever he wanted. And then when you die, it comes out. So will anything come out of Bob Geldof when he's dead? I don't know. Be interesting to see anyway. But I don't. There's a dishonesty in Bob Geldof. He talks about how hard his life was in Ireland. It wasn't that hard. He had it way easier compared to me. I grew up in the flats. I worked in the soap factory. I was from the streets. He wasn't. I didn't go to the Eton of Ireland. I went to an inner city comprehensive. Got the shit beat out of me every day coming home from school. I had to take vast detours every day. And it wasn't like I was upset. I'm not traumatized by it. It's just how life was. There'd be a gang at every part of Ballymun waiting to jump on you and batter the shit out of you. It's just how life was. It's just how it was. And then it suddenly all stopped. When I turned 14, suddenly no one was beating me up anymore. So it was really weird. It was like, for the first 12 years of my life, 14 years of my life, I'm getting the shit kicked down of me. And then as soon as I turned 14, it's like, the ones who were kicking my head in, hey, Tomo, how's it going? How are you doing? It's just bizarre. It's just like a switch just went off. Suddenly I was not being beat up anymore. But anyway, that's how I had it. And I, when I was in bands, I didn't write songs about, I'm on the streets, man. I'm on the streets. I don't have shit, because my mother was Miss Jewish Ireland because she was a beauty queen. I was in the soap factory because my family, bad Boomtown Rats music, the piano, ding 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 ding. They gotta get that. I'm looking like David Johansen because I've nothing interesting to say. I'm looking like Mick Jagger because I can't come up with an original image. I got this shit band called the Boomtown Rats by ding 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 behind me. I was on the soap factory, but don't forget the fact that my family were Belgian chocolate merchants who had a whole chain of stores around Dublin. Ding 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 ding. Twat. That's Geldof. And he's dishonest about his background. I mean, at least when Bruce Springsteen sings about his working class background, that's real. He did grow up in Freehold, New Jersey, wherever in the town he grows up, and he was from a working class background. Even Bono was from a working class background, for Christ's sake. But Geldof wasn't, and yet it's dishonest at that level. And I always remember that song. There's always something looking at you. The lyrics go. And this is like on I think the second Boomtown Rats album. I got a friend over there in the government block, and he knows the situation and he's taking stock. There's always someone looking at you. Uh-oh. What bizarre lyrics. What was that? Instead of the working in a soap factory, I got a friend over there in the government block, and he knows the situation and he's taking stock. Was that the real lyrics? And then last year, Geldof comes back to Dublin to hand back in his prize about, his prize of what's happened in Miramar, because they didn't take the freedom of the city away from the president of that country, whatever her name is, because she's protecting the country from Islam. And Dublin City Council, the first political operation in Ireland that actually stood up to him and say, okay, fair enough, he's been stripped of your title, and then he has the right to complain about it. This is Geldof. First of all, he says, I'm going to give back my free man of the city of Dublin because they haven't taken away from the president of Miramar. And then they say, okay, fair enough, and they take it off him. And then he goes, can you believe they did that to me? That's Geldof. That's Geldof. And just you see, a lot of people hate Bono, but I don't see a wickedness in Bono. I don't see a darkness there. I see a kind of naivety. Bono is a typical Southern Irish Protestant in that he's a missionary complex. He's trying to take care of the Africans. It's a missionary thing, a Christian Presbyterian missionary thing. He's extremely. I don't know what the story was, but I don't see a wickedness. I see a darkness. Whenever I see Geldof being interviewed, I see it. I can't explain. There's a darkness there. It's a hard one to put a finger on. Now, I always, years ago, in I think it was the last ever Thin Lizzy single, while they were still Thin Lizzy with Phil in it, was a song called The Sun Goes Down. Brilliant song, by the way. Check it out. And I remember when I first heard that in 82 or whenever it was, 83, the lyric went, there is a demon among us who so long belongs in hell, sent here to redeem us. He knows us all too well. And I remember when I first heard that, I said, oh, that sounds like Geldof. And this was before Live Aid. And for some reason, I got it into my head that Phil Lynott was singing about Geldof, and then he drops dead a few years later as well. I don't know if the two are related. I just don't know why that popped into my head when I heard that lyric. Sent here to redeem us, he knows us all too well. And then the whole Live Aid thing, the catastrophe that was, didn't really help anyone. It just, I mean, I'm not putting down people like Midge and all the other bands and lots of other people who got involved. Although the band I have the most respect for at Live Aid is Queen, because what they said was we're only into it because we want to rebuild our audience. But they were honest about it. I remember the Smiths wouldn't do it, and the Smiths said it was just a nauseating, narcissistic thing. And it's a shame, really, because I have very happy memories of Live Aid. I just do. I just remember that, I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed the experience at the time. But, send us your fucking money. It didn't really do anything for anyone. It didn't. It gave him a career, and didn't he take all the equipment that was bought for Live Aid to set up his TV company that made him a multi-millionaire? He's worth an absolute fortune now. Anyway, there's a darkness there. I can't explain it. But anyway, I don't know where it just came up. Suicides, and it's in many ways to be that level famous, where the newspapers are watching all your private life constantly, and your experiences are all out there in the world. It has to be very strange, but I totally understand why they live behind closed. I'm always amazed how people who can do it and maintain their privacy. You don't hear a lot about Bruce Springsteen's family life or private life. Some of them are actually very good at it, and then some of them actually use it as a tool. Like, you never hear Johnny Lydon talk about his family. Oh, he's talking about his family, but he doesn't push his family life out there. That's the way it should be. Otherwise, they're like politicians. That's the biggest problem with music today. It became part of the sci-fi world. It automatically has to be left-wing. Although that seems to have changed with the recent Jeremy Corbyn concert in London. No one showed up. The bands didn't come. So maybe they're starting to wise up. Who knows? All I know is that all these bands are afraid to come out and say, yeah, we like Trump, we like Brexit, except Morrissey, and it's in no way affected his career. John Lydon said John Lydon said it for the same reason. It's not that you have to like Trump, but you have to respect that the people, the working class, spoke. In both cases, in the case of Trump and in the case of Brexit, the working class spoke. And I'm working class, John Lydon's working class. So that's our people. They spoke, they had their say. You have to listen. And that's what the revulsion came from. The revulsion came from that. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. I hope you consider my suggestion of supporting this UK KIP political election idea, and look after yourselves and feck 'em if they can't take a joke. Especially when people talk about their independence, their free will. If you need someone to save you, or you need a counter culture or mainstream culture savior, someone who validates your opinions, you're really a slave.
also suffering from a disease. And the disease is that you have not understood that the problem is really your belief in external salvation beyond yourself. If you didn't need to feel this desire to have an authority figure or a celebrity or a politician validate and express your feelings, you wouldn't need these saviors in the first place. And this is the root of the problem. We are very carefully controlled from the time we're children to have a sort of the need for a savior.
There is no turning back. You got to face the truth. It's all you have to do. Hit the ground and run. Take a second glance towards the rising sun.
You grow up with that picture of Jesus Christ with his Dionysian beard and long hair, and his softness and his Aryan looks. And you believe that, deep in your subconscious, that this is someone you need. But you're missing the point completely. Salvation is your own ass. Accept it and please deal with it.